Los Chapitos escalate the drug war with a bold move by sending a shocking video of El Mencho directly to the DEA. This defiant gesture could change the rules of the game in the never-ending battle against the cartels. How will the DEA respond? Before we begin, like and subscribe. It's free. Now let's get started. With El Chapo behind bars, his sons, known as Los Chapitos, are attempting to collaborate with the authorities, offering insider information. They are pointing to El Mencho as the main culprit and have handed over an alarming video of this notorious drug lord to the DEA. But the question arises, what exactly do Los Chapitos know about El Mencho, and why are they reaching out to the DEA? Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's sons, Ivan Alfredo, Joaquin, and Ovidio, have become central figures in this drama. Designated by the DEA as the new faces of danger in the drug trade, they made the surprising decision to contact prominent Mexican journalist Azucena Uresti to clarify their position. Nevertheless, what has truly worsened the situation in Mexico is the coded message sent to the DEA in their statement, in which they categorically deny leading the Sinaloa cartel or being involved in the production and trafficking of fentanyl, which dominates the region. The Chapitos have also urged the DEA to focus its investigations on identifying the owners of the recently dismantled fentanyl laboratories in Sinaloa. Despite rejecting any ties to the cartel's leadership and distancing themselves from the growing fentanyl trade, the Guzman brothers have suggested where the DEA should start looking for the criminal group behind the fentanyl expansion. In their statement, they mentioned, "We have never been involved with fentanyl, although we know that many in Sinaloa do manufacture it. The recent raids show that these labs belong to specific individuals. It would be enough for them to send an agent to investigate in Sinaloa." The Chapitos also commented on the press conference held by Ann Milgram, head of the DEA, expressing regret about how the DEA's statements have damaged their international image. However, while they refrained from mentioning names directly in their letters, the only other criminal group with the capacity to produce fentanyl on a large scale, and with the organizational structure to transport it massively into the United States, is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, alias El Mencho. The CJNG has emerged as the most formidable adversary of the Sinaloa cartel over the past decade, although the message may seem trivial to some. For those familiar with the dynamics of Mexican drug trafficking and the intense rivalry between the Sinaloa cartel and the CJNG, it holds significant meaning. Recently, the Chapitos' communications have placed El Mencho in the spotlight, a situation that worsened after Ovidio Guzman's extradition to the United States. Some experts suggest that the Guzman brothers may have struck a deal with the DEA to help capture El Mencho, one of the agency's most wanted criminals. This letter is seen as a possible attempt to divert attention from what is really happening behind the scenes. This communication comes at a critical moment, as the DEA has shifted its focus towards the Chapitos. Ann Milgram, head of the DEA, has publicly condemned the brothers, labeling them as pioneers in the production and trafficking of fentanyl, a drug responsible for numerous deaths in the United States. In presenting new charges against the Chapitos, Milgram described them not only as the successors of El Chapo's criminal empire, but as even more powerful and deadly figures, given their alleged role in fentanyl trafficking into the U.S. Milgram has also pointed out that the Sinaloa cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, are the greatest criminal threats the United States has ever faced. With these recent charges by the U.S. Department of Justice against the Guzmans, the relentless pursuit of the Chapitos by the DEA has reached a climax, including the alarming accusation that the Chapitos have tested fentanyl on humans before distributing it on the streets of the United States. This disturbing revelation has intensified the DEA's offensive against the Chapitos, while also straining joint efforts between the United States and Mexico to combat drug trafficking. A new bilateral commission was recently established between both countries, focused on addressing the trafficking of synthetic drugs, firearms, and ammunition. The creation of this commission demonstrates the mutual commitment to tackle this urgent challenge, further highlighting the gravity of the accusations against the Chapitos. However, the situation is complicated by the stance of Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, who contradicts both the DEA and the Chapitos, claiming that fentanyl is not produced in Mexico. This statement not only questions the DEA's claims, but also adds a layer of diplomatic tension between the two countries. In this context, the Chapitos used their letter to criticize the media and public figures, accusing them of benefiting from their notoriety. According to them, these actors have perpetuated lies through interviews with so-called experts who do not truly understand who the Chapitos are. They argue that a lie repeated many times can become the truth, highlighting that repeated misinformation can be mistakenly accepted as fact by the public. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to subscribe for more similar content and give us a like to support us. In their letter, the Guzman brothers explain that they decided to speak up to clarify their situation, even though they initially opted for anonymity, hoping the issues would resolve themselves. However, this strategy didn't work as they had expected. With the Chapitos at the center of drug trafficking in Mexico and intensely pursued by the DEA, it paved the way for El Mencho to emerge. Since the 2000s, after the fall of several drug trafficking leaders, El Mencho and his Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, capitalized on the power vacuum to rise rapidly, using extreme violence as a business tool in a show of power. This included brutal acts such as the abandonment of 35 bodies in Veracruz, and the strategic expansion by controlling key ports and routes. Despite efforts to capture him, with a bounty that has risen to $10 million, El Mencho remains at large. The CJNG has also demonstrated its ability to challenge the state, as when they shot down a military helicopter. The influence of the CJNG has spread to all levels of society, from rural areas to major cities. The letter from the Guzman family has raised suspicions of a possible collaboration with the DEA to take down El Mencho, suggesting an attempt by the Chapitos to eliminate a key rival in the world of drug trafficking. The strategic location of Jalisco facilitated the expansion of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, led by El Mencho, in its trafficking operations. In 2016, El Mencho kidnapped El Chapo's sons, Jesus Alfredo and Ivan Archivaldo, in a restaurant in Puerto Vallarta, marking a shift in the rules of drug trafficking by directly targeting a rival leader's family, something traditionally considered taboo. This act was both a declaration of war and a sign that El Chapo's dominance was waning. While El Chapo was imprisoned, he negotiated the release of his sons in exchange for money and drugs, although the ransom was more symbolic, with El Mencho sending a message that no one was untouchable. After El Chapo's extradition to the U.S., his cartel lost power, creating a vacuum that his sons couldn't fill due to their lack of experience and reputation. This allowed the CJNG and El Mencho to establish themselves as the new dominant forces in Mexican drug trafficking, challenging the Sinaloa cartel. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, led by El Mencho, has intensified violence in Mexico, especially in Zacatecas, challenging the Sinaloa cartel with brutal tactics. The dispute between these cartels has triggered a wave of violence that includes murders and mutilated bodies, turning Zacatecas into a battlefield. Despite the deployment of security forces, the violence persists. Additionally, El Mencho has expanded his drug trafficking operation to the United States, exploiting the demand for drugs and increasing violence and corruption in small towns. The CJNG has brought drugs to U.S. communities, causing a crisis of addiction and overdoses. This expansion has been strategic and devastating for the social fabric of the affected areas. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, led by El Mencho, has transformed cities like Chicago into key hubs for its drug distribution network, significantly contributing to the opioid crisis in the U.S., with drugs such as methamphetamine, fentanyl, and heroin. The DEA faces significant challenges due to the sophisticated logistics of the CJNG, which employs everything from encrypted communication to drones and submarines to move its products. While there have been successes in drug seizures and dismantling cartel cells, the decentralized structure of the CJNG allows for rapid replacement of fallen members, maintaining its resilience. The opioid epidemic has intensified, eroding the social fabric of American communities and exacerbating violence and crime. The CJNG has also infiltrated the legal economy, using legitimate businesses to launder money. Despite coordinated operations between Mexican and American authorities to capture El Mencho, His elusive nature has contributed to his image of invincibility, allowing the flow of narcotics into the United States to continue. The persistence of the CJNG in drug trafficking underscores the complex challenges the U.S. faces in its fight against the distribution of illicit drugs. El Nini was not the first to hold the position of security chief for Los Chapitos. This title originally belonged to a man who was neutralized in 2018 during a raid on a property in Culiacan, Sinaloa, by federal forces. Recently, national media attention has focused on the Colinas de la Ribera area in Culiacan, where Nestor Isidro Perez Salas, also identified as the security chief for Los Chapitos, was captured by members of the National Defense Secretariat, SEDENA, and the National Guard, GN. Although El Nini is one of the most recent to be arrested, he is not the first significant lieutenant of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's sons to be captured. Brussels-based NAC magazine published an exclusive interview with Ivan Arquivaldo Guzman Salazar, the leader of Los Chapitos, conducted by journalist Ernesto Rodriguez Amari in a secret location within the Golden Triangle. In this interview, Ivan shared private details about his life and confirmed the identity of the person in charge of his security at the time. Luis Alfonso Murillo Acosta, known under the alias El Güero Ranas, played a crucial role in the security structure of the Sinaloa cartel, particularly in protecting Ivan Arquivaldo Guzman Salazar, also known as El Chapito. The persistence of the CJNG in drug trafficking underscores the complex challenges the U.S. faces in its fight against the distribution of illicit drugs. El Nini was not the first to hold the position of security chief for Los Chapitos. This title originally belonged to a man who was neutralized in 2018 during a raid on a property in Culiacan, Sinaloa, by federal forces. Recently, national media attention has focused on the Colinas de la Ribera area in Culiacan, where Nestor Isidro Perez Salas, also identified as the security chief for Los Chapitos, was captured by members of the National Defense Secretariat, SEDENA, and the National Guard, GN. Although El Nini is one of the most recent to be arrested, he is not the first significant lieutenant of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's sons to be captured. Brussels-based NAC magazine published an exclusive interview with Ivan Arquivaldo Guzman Salazar, the leader of Los Chapitos, conducted by journalist Ernesto Rodriguez Amari in a secret location within the Golden Triangle. In this interview, Ivan shared private details about his life and confirmed the identity of the person in charge of his security at the time. Luis Alfonso Murillo Acosta, known under the alias El Güero Ranas, played a crucial role in the security structure of the Sinaloa cartel, particularly in protecting Ivan Arquivaldo Guzman Salazar, also known as El Chapito. This incident stands out not only for the removal of a high-profile criminal, but also for the broader implications for the cartel. Murillo Acosta was identified as the coordinator of a notorious attack against elements of the army on September 30, 2016, in Culiacan. In that event, armed men using trucks and equipped with Barrett rifles and grenades ambushed the soldiers, resulting in the deaths of 6 soldiers and injuries to several others. El Chapito, in an interview with journalist Ernesto Rodriguez Amari published in March 2018 by NAC magazine, lamented the loss of Murillo Acosta and criticized the government's accusations, arguing that he had no connection to the 2016 attacks on the soldiers, suggesting that his loss was unjust and manipulated by government narratives. If you've made it this far and enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell to receive updates on future videos on YouTube. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments.